If you want to know how to get the most out of attending a conference, then you're going to want to watch this video. It's Paul Tobey from Training Business Pros, and I've attended thousands of conferences over the years, and each one that I go to is definitely a different experience, even if it's the same conference year after year. You've got to have a plan, and part of the plan is to incorporate the 5 strategies that I'm going to talk about in this video. Now remember, this comes from experience after attending a lot of conferences. You're going to want to know what they are, and we're going to get started right now. All right, so I've got 5 solid strategies to get the most out of your next conference. So whether you're attending there as a speaker, or you've got a trade show booth, or whatever, even just an attendee, then you're going to want to know these 5 strategies. All right, let's get started. Number 1, you have to have a goal for that conference. If you don't create a plan and a big goal, in other words, what do you want to come away with, then you're not going to get the most out of it, because as soon as you set the intention, that just puts everything into motion, and you'll figure out a way in order to make that intention a reality. So whether you're going there to drum up more business for your new business or your existing business, or you're going there to meet some speakers, or maybe you want to buy some stuff, find out what's new, and just educate yourself, it really doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that you know what it is. And of course, a lot of people think that, well, that must just be organic. Hey, I heard about this great conference. I'm going to go there and just find out what's going on. I don't think that's a good plan. And I really strongly advise you to think heavily about your time and your investment and how you can get the most out of that conference by just knowing what it is you actually want. I think most people go to conferences not knowing what that is. And if you know, it'll make it that much better and much more productive for you. Let's move on to number 2. Yes, I've attended lots of conferences. I've purchased booths at conferences for my business. But the most benefit that I ever get from a conference is a speaking spot. Now, you may think to yourself you're not worthy of that speaking spot, but it only really matters that you have one thing, and that is some experience. The experience that you have is likely experience that others do not. And when you apply for a speaking spot, it's not necessarily that you need to be well known. I've applied for lots of speaking spots where they don't know who I am. And the reason why I get those spots a lot is because in the application for a speaker, I'm just trying to be different. You got to think about topics that people wouldn't normally talk about. And that's what interests the people who choose speakers. So the title of the presentation and the description of the presentation is really what they base most of their decisions off. Yes, if somebody on that panel knows who you are, and you can, go around the process and you get chosen just by virtue of the fact that you're some kind of famous person in that industry, then that's one thing. But that's not everyone, and there's a lot of speaking spots left over for people who are just creative about their presentation application, right? It's not about thinking about how smart you are and putting a whole bunch of how-tos and facts in your application. It's really about the words that you choose. Do they sound marketing? Does that sound like something that our conference attendees would want to go to? Does it sound exciting? Is it, again, different? Don't try to be better. Better is very subjective. Just be different, and there's a good chance that your application will stand out amongst the thousands. Recently, I spoke at WordCamp Europe, for example, and they don't know who I am. I just applied because I have an interest in WordPress. And in fact, my son applied too, and he runs a WordPress business, and he didn't get accepted and I did. It has nothing to do with how popular I am with the WordPress audience, because they don't know me from a hole in the wall. But the topic was different, and that's what's important. All right, let's move on to number 3. When you go to a conference, be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. A lot of times when we go to presentations and we choose the speakers that we go and see, we're sitting there trying to think, okay, Is this person smarter than me? Are they a good speaker? All of that. What you really want to do is go in and expect things to be great. And when they're great, write things down. Remember them. Learn as much as you can. Even when I go to a conference as a speaker, I do my best to go to other speaker presentations, go to the trade show and talk to people and learn as much as I possibly can. A learn-it-all mentality is way better than a know-it-all mentality, and you'll get a lot more out of the conference if you go in with that attitude. All right, number 4, and I think this is probably well known by a lot of people, but then there's a whole probably segment that doesn't know this. So here it is. Go to as many social events as you can. I totally get that many of them are not programmed. You kind of need some inside information. So chatting up the people at the trade show booths is a good idea. One thing that I always ask the other trade show businesses is like, what are you doing tonight? Where are you going? What's happening? And I think that's a great question. Like, what are you doing later? And you'll find out. And then what you do is you get yourself an invitation, or you just kind of show up. You know, a lot of times, even if you don't have an invite, you show up and you say, listen, you know, Bob invited me. And they're like, who's Bob? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And just figure out a way to get in. You know, when we host events at trade shows that we go to with our company, we post gatekeepers. And those gatekeepers are informed of who's on the invite list and who signed up. But they're also informed to talk to people and find out why they want to get in, why they want to be part of the event. And yes, they'll turn some people away, but more often than not, they'll let them in if we have space, because you don't want your event to look empty. A lot of people host their own events at conferences in their private rooms, or in many cases, the lobby of the hotel, roped off areas. It looks like something's happening. But if there's nobody in it, then nobody's going to want to be there, because people only like to be where other people are, where it looks like things are happening. So my suggestion is to you, track down all of the social events that you possibly can, because more conversations and business is done at those events than anywhere else. More than the trade show floor, definitely more than at the speaker presentations, and definitely more than in the washroom. So go hang out. And if you don't get invited to these things, by the way, find out where the host hotel is and go sit in the bar and talk to people after hours, and see if you can then drum up some conversations and get invited to some events. That's a pretty good way to go about it. Oh, and a lot of stuff happens in the elevator as well. Anytime you see somebody with a conference badge on, just ask them, say, hey, where'd you come from? What's your name and why are you here? And you'll learn as much as you can about where you need to be. All right, let's move on to the last one. And this is the most important one. Yes, the previous 4 were great. This one is better. I've seen this so many times at a conference where people get together, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people, and there's so much happening. You don't know where to go next. It's just, and all the conversations that you're having is like, oh my God, that's so great. We should get together afterward. And there's a lot of conversation about doing things with other people. And in my experience, the people that are at the conference have that same conversation with hundreds of people. Oh, that sounds great. I'm going to follow up with you. Oh, wow, we should really get together and do that. And they have that conversation daily over and over and over again. And then it's just such high energy. After the conference, it just goes flat and nothing happens. And that's because most people don't have a follow-up system. So what you need is a short-term nurture and a long-term nurture follow-up system. Follow up, follow up, follow up, and do not give up. If you send out one email to somebody whose business card you got and you say, hey, listen, we should have a conversation about that thing we talked about, there's a high likelihood that they're not going to respond, because they got that same email from 100 other people. But most people give up after a couple of days. You're not going to give up for months. And that's really the trick to getting the most out of relationships at a conference, is you want to be in it for the long haul. So I'm not suggesting in any way that you're going to spam people for the next several months, but what I am suggesting is that you stay in contact with as many people as you can on topic, and continue to send email. And the most important thing in that email is a question that they can respond to. A question, for example, what is it you're working on right now that you think maybe I could fit into? Or maybe you can tell me a little bit about what's going on in your business right now. Things like that. Like, just give them something they can answer. Don't write 10 paragraphs of how wonderful you are and how they should be doing business with you. No, just send them a couple of questions and keep going. Never give up. So that's my top 5 things that you need to do to get the most out of your next conference. If you have any questions or comments about this, please post them below. And if you want to drill down on any of these subjects a little bit more, hey, just post it below. I'll see if I can make a video about that too. It's Paul Tobey. Want to subscribe to the channel? That'd be a great idea. I'd love that. Thanks. We'll see you later.